The year is 1688, and England stands on the edge of revolution again. For half a century, kings and parliaments have been locked in a bitter struggle for power. The Civil War executed one king, the Restoration brought his son back, and now, once more, the fate of monarchy hangs in the balance. King James II, a Catholic on a Protestant throne, faces rebellion from his own nobles. In our timeline, his daughter Mary and her Dutch husband, William of Orange, invade England, forcing James to flee. Parliament declares the throne vacant, crowns William and Mary, and establishes the constitutional monarchy that defines Britain to this day. But what if James II had not fled? What if the so-called Glorious Revolution, bloodless, swift, decisive, had failed? In this alternate world, the Dutch invasion falters, the Protestant nobles' rebellion collapses, and King James II remains on the throne. The consequences reshape not only Britain but the modern world itself. Let's imagine how it happens. In this timeline, James learns from his mistakes. Instead of panicking and fleeing to France, he rallies his supporters. The English army, divided in our history, remains loyal. The fleet in the Channel intercepts William's ships, scattering his invasion force. Storms ravage the Dutch fleet just as they once doomed the Spanish Armada. William's soldiers, stranded and outnumbered, are crushed in a swift campaign. William himself is captured, forced to sign a treaty recognizing James as the legitimate king. The immediate aftermath is brutal. The nobles who supported William are executed or exiled. Parliament, intimidated and divided, submits. The Protestant cause, humiliated, goes silent. James, triumphant, reasserts his divine right with new confidence. The Catholic faith, long persecuted, returns to prominence. Bishops are replaced, laws repealed, and monasteries reopened. The Church of England is no longer the state religion. England is once again officially Catholic. Daily life changes swiftly. In London, Protestant ministers are replaced by Catholic priests. The Book of Common Prayer is banned. Latin Mass echoes through Westminster Abbey for the first time in over a century. Protestant gentry, terrified of losing their estates, convert publicly to Catholicism. Catholic processions, once forbidden, fill the streets. A London merchant who once prospered under Protestant kings now hides his faith in secret. A Catholic family in Lancashire, long shunned, finds itself favored at court. The cultural transformation is profound. The great Protestant universities, Oxford, Cambridge, are restructured. Catholic scholars return from exile. Jesuits establish colleges in London and York. A new wave of art and architecture sweeps through England, inspired by Italian Baroque and Spanish grandeur. Churches gleam with gold and incense, while Puritan austerity is swept aside. The theater, once suppressed by Protestant moralism, thrives again, but now under royal and clerical oversight, its themes more religious and moralistic than free and daring. The political effects ripple across Europe. The Glorious Revolution in our world created the first constitutional monarchy, where Parliament limited royal power and citizens enjoyed guaranteed rights under the 1689 Bill of Rights. Without it, no such document exists. Parliament remains subordinate to the king. James, emboldened, governs by decree. The notion that government derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed, one of the great ideas of modern democracy, never takes root. In France, Louis XIV rejoices. The Catholic monarchs of Europe celebrate England's return to the fold. The alliance of Protestant states collapses. The Dutch Republic, isolated and leaderless after William's capture, faces ruin. France and England, long rivals, become uneasy allies under Catholic kings. Together, they dominate Europe's politics, leaving Protestant powers like Prussia and Sweden on the defensive. The Protestant world feels the shock. Scotland, deeply Calvinist, rises in rebellion but is crushed. Ireland, long Catholic, becomes James's stronghold. For the first time, the Irish find themselves on the winning side of English politics. The plantation system that oppressed them reverses. Protestant landlords flee, and Catholic ownership spreads again. Ireland becomes an integral, loyal part of the Catholic English crown. The centuries of Irish rebellion that defined our timeline never occur. Across the Atlantic, the changes are dramatic. In our history, Protestant England built colonies infused with Puritan ideals, Massachusetts, Virginia, and beyond. In this alternate world, Catholic England treats its colonies more like Spain or Portugal did, strictly hierarchical, missionary-driven, and controlled by royal authority. The Puritan settlements of New England, appalled by James's Catholicism, rebel early. Some flee north to Canada or west into wilderness, others are crushed by royal troops. Catholicism becomes the dominant religion in English America, with Jesuit missions spreading through Virginia and Maryland. The future United States becomes an impossibility. Daily life in the colonies reflects the shift. A New England church that once preached fiery sermons now hosts Mass. A Catholic priest blesses plantations in Maryland. The Protestant settlers who founded towns like Boston or Salem either convert or disappear. Native peoples, approached by Catholic missionaries rather than Puritan settlers, face different fates, more conversion, perhaps less immediate extermination, but still domination under the banner of the Church. The economic world shifts as well. The Glorious Revolution in our timeline gave birth to modern capitalism. The Bank of England, created in 1694, financed trade and empire. Without it, financial innovation stagnates. England's navy, lacking parliamentary funding and private investment, grows slower. The Dutch and French continue to dominate global trade. The Industrial Revolution, born from England's free markets and entrepreneurial spirit, never happens or happens much later, perhaps in the Netherlands or France. Science and philosophy take a darker turn without the constitutional stability and freedom of thought that followed the Glorious Revolution. English intellectual life remains under strict church control. Philosophers like John Locke, whose writings on liberty and government influenced revolutions around the world, are exiled or silenced. The Enlightenment, deprived of its English roots, flourishes instead in France and the German states. Ironically, France, though still absolute, becomes the center of liberal thought. England, Catholic and autocratic, remains suspicious of new ideas. By 1700, England looks less like a modern democracy and more like a northern Spain. The king rules by divine right, supported by bishops and aristocrats. Parliament exists, but only as a ceremonial body. The press is censored, dissent punished. Protestantism lingers underground, its followers meeting secretly in cellars. Catholic cathedrals rise over English cities, magnificent but oppressive symbols of royal and clerical unity. The wider world follows this shift. Without a Protestant England, the balance of global colonization changes. The Americas become overwhelmingly Catholic, divided between Spain, France, and England. The Reformation's global influence ends. The Protestant work ethic, often credited with fueling capitalism and industrialization, never spreads. The modern world grows more religiously uniform, more hierarchical, less dynamic. The 18th century unfolds under the long shadow of Catholic monarchies. There is no British Empire as we know it, no India under the East India Company, no Protestant missionaries, no naval supremacy. Instead, England joins France and Spain in managing vast Catholic colonial empires. Rivalries still exist, but more about dynastic power than ideology. The language of liberty and rights, so central to our history, remains suppressed. Daily life under this regime shows its contradictions. A peasant in Devon prays 2 saints and attends Mass but still pays high taxes to fund royal wars. A merchant in London prospers from trade but must tithe to the church. A scholar in Oxford studies theology under Jesuit supervision, forbidden from reading banned books. A noble woman in court enjoys luxury but has no say in government. Society is ordered, stable, and suffocating. By the late 18th century, revolutions began elsewhere. In France, the Enlightenment, born of suppressed ideas, explodes violently. The French Revolution still happens, but without England as a constitutional model to imitate, it becomes even bloodier. Monarchies across Europe tremble. England, still Catholic and absolute, sends troops to aid France's royalists instead of opposing tyranny. The world's march toward democracy slows. The Americas, too, remain monarchies. Without British liberal traditions, no American Revolution occurs. The colonies stay loyal, Catholic, and hierarchical. Independence movements arise later, modeled not on Washington and Jefferson but on Napoleon. The 19th century becomes an age of empires, not republics. By 1900, this alternate world feels eerily familiar yet fundamentally different. Europe is dominated by Catholic monarchies. The Enlightenment's liberal ideas have spread, but slowly and violently. England remains a great power, but autocratic, more like Tsarist Russia than constitutional Britain. The Industrial Revolution, delayed, eventually reaches England, but under royal control, not entrepreneurial capitalism. Factories rise, but unions are banned. Railways are built, but for the crown, not the people. Would this world be better? In some ways, it is more stable. The religious wars that ravaged Europe are fewer, with Catholicism uniting the continent. Monarchies last longer, revolutions fewer, but the cost is freedom. Without the Glorious Revolution, there is no Bill of Rights, no parliamentary democracy, no modern concept of liberty. Science, capitalism, and democracy all emerge slower, if at all. The entire arc of modern civilization bends differently. Less toward freedom, more toward faith and order. Still, the vision is striking. Imagine Westminster Abbey crowned with statues of saints. Imagine the Pope blessing English kings from Rome. Imagine America as a Catholic monarchy loyal to London and Rome alike. Imagine the Enlightenment without Locke, democracy without Britain, freedom without precedent. A world where the Glorious Revolution failed and the modern age never truly began. So, what do you think? Would a Catholic England under James II have brought unity and order, or suffocated the freedoms that shaped our world? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Sheriff Reactions for daily flips, because history isn't just what happened, it's what could have happened.